Okay. So we'll now get started. And a very good morning once again to all of you all. I have with me Pooja, who will be co-hosting this webinar. So I think you all can see me now. We just had some initial glitches, as one would probably always have with any webinar for some reason. So Pooja is here with me. She's a co-host in this webinar. We both will be leading this webinar, which is on executive presence and a part of the strategic leadership program.
Good morning, all of you as well, and happy to have all of you on this first webinar series. Just some hygiene instructions. What you see on your screen is just a couple of options. One of them is raising your hand. So if you do have a point, just raise your hand, and we will, Deep or I would answer that question as we speak. And there is an option of Q&A as well. We will either choose to give the answer live, or we would choose to give the answer written basis what the question is. That's about it, I think, and then we can get started now. So over to you, Deep.
Thank you very much. Give me a second. A bit of an introduction about myself. My name is Deep, of course, as you all have been introduced. And I am a partner at Recalibrate. Recalibrate is an organization which is sort of an agile coaching and organization development consulting company. We work with many organizations, large, small, medium, what have you. We also work with founder companies, startup companies for transforming, for growing their businesses, for helping them lay a foundation. And most of our work really is around coaching, which is development, which is leadership development, business development through innovation, coaching, and we also have a sales practice. So this is essentially what we do. And without much ado, I think we should just get on to the webinar now, which you all perhaps are very eager to now receive. So executive presence. So when we talk of executive presence, what it really means is very different to different people. What is the word that first comes up to our mind when we talk of executive presence? So it could be how you impact others, or how do you influence others? How does your presence, just your very being, how does that impact maybe your team, maybe in your personal lives, your friends? So presence is many things to many people in the given context. Today, we are going to take you through the model of presence. This is a model that we have developed through many years of our own research and working with many organizations within the context. So we will be taking you through the model. We'll be covering two aspects of the model because this webinar is split into two parts. So today we will be covering a couple of dimensions of executive presence. So I think first up, here's a bit of a quiz for you all. Rate yourselves on a scale of 1 to 10 on executive presence right now. So we are launching this poll. Just rate yourselves. This is very confidential. We cannot see who's answered what, so your names are not going to be highlighted. It's all sort of labeled. Okay, we've got about 18 of you who have voted. Go on, I'm leaving it open for a bit. Okay. All right. So what we have here is very interesting results. Here are the results. We've got the results for you. So what this tells us is 5% rated themselves on 1, and 29% rated themselves. Okay, so the rating here is 4. Okay, so 5% rated themselves at 4, and 29% rated themselves at 8. So don't much, get concerned about your scores, and you will soon discover why. I don't know what benchmarks you used, when you all said, okay, 4 or 6 or 7. So the benchmarks that one uses for demonstrating or for assessing how you're really impacting others, what does your presence do to others? It's about what does it do to others? How does it shift others? So for that, the benchmark questions that you would ask are the following other questions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through the questions and generally expand these questions so we understand them better while we are on this whole journey of enhancing our presence. Yeah. So the first question is, when do people listen to me? What does that really mean? When do people listen to me? What it really means is it when I am using my position of superiority or seniority? Is it when I'm very happy? Or is it when I'm angry and I'm assertive? These are the questions that pop up. When do people listen to me? Do they listen to me when I listen to them? Oh, that's a good one. When do they really listen? So the response to this question, whatever your response is to this question, that gives you an insight. That gives you an insight of, okay, there are many places, there are many events or situations when people don't listen to me. And you'll also get to know when they do listen to you. The idea, the key piece here is to reflect on when they listen to you and do more of that. So if you feel, say for some of you, while you're reflecting on this question, if you feel that, okay, you know what, my daughter or my son listens to me more when I am XYZ, when my behavior is XYZ. Now that means you model that. When do they not listen to you? Reflect on that as well. So this is what this question really means. How well do I hold conversations? So to assess or to measure your executive presence, the next question would be, how well do I hold conversations? What that really means is, in a conversation, there are times when the conversations could get argumentative. There could be pushbacks from the other party or from a group of people, right? They could be sorry about that, just a bit of a glitch here. Just a second. Okay, sorry, there was just a bit of glitch here. How well do I hold conversations is about if the other party is angry, say the other party is angry, say the other party is pushing back. This is, so what do you do? How do you hold that? How do you respond to that? That measures your presence. How do you then impact people? So sometimes, if you notice, there is a bit of silence. There's a bit of silence between two people. And mostly, your conversations, as I know the context, is mostly on the phone. Very rarely could it be BC. So on the phone, you can't see the other party. So what do you really do then? How do you breathe? How do you measure your words? That's called holding a conversation. Do you take it forward? Or is there roadblocks and there is a lot of silence? So for you, the piece would be to reflect on conversations you have with your peer group, conversations you have with your clients, conversations you have in your workplace with many stakeholders. That's an exercise for you to do. Reflect on these conversations. Now, how do I really show up in various situations? Now, that must be throwing up a lot of questions in your head, because when I ask myself, how do I show up in my coaching sessions? How do I show up when I'm sitting with a CEO or senior leaders like yourselves? How do I show up what is the energy I'm carrying? So what is the energy? What is the knowledge I'm bringing to the table? Or what is the uh, tonality of my voice? All of that is how we show up in various situations. Am I angry? Am I happy? Because all this can be picked by the other party, right? So that is how do you really show up in various situations. For example, let's take an example. You have a client query. Maybe it's an escalation. How do you show up in that phone call? Are you worried? Are you really worried in that phone call? Are you very confident? Because if you were to impact, impress, and influence the other party, how you show up is very important. Because the other party is going to respond not much to what you're saying. They're going to respond to a lot of what they see, what you project. Yeah. So if you're projecting underconfidence, they're going to respond to that. They're not going to respond to much of what you say. That's how important it is to answer these questions for yourselves. How do you really show up? If your child does not perform, as per expectations, how do you show up in front of that child? Are you angry? Are you using harsh words? Or are you calm? That's showing up. Yeah. How powerful is my voice? That's the next one up. We will be talking, by the way, we'll be talking a lot about all of this. We'll be talking a lot about voice in this webinar. We'll be talking about how do you modulate your voice, what's the best voice to use, all of that. Yeah. So next one is, how structured am I in my communication? We will be talking a lot on that too, because every communication has a structure. Many of us have learned to communicate, subconsciously through the years. But there is something called an anatomy of a conversation. We will be doing a lot of that as well today to share what this anatomy is. Once you know the anatomy, then you structure your communication in that manner, yeah? Just to make it more powerful, articulated, and all of that. How many times do I really listen and give others a chance to speak? Okay, this is a big one. It is a very big one. Mostly, are we listening? The question you ask is, am I really listening, or am I waiting for my chance to talk? Am I waiting for my turn to talk? That's a question you would ask yourself. Listening it has various levels. We'll be touching upon listening as well. It is so important as a leadership trait, whether it's a client or your subordinate or your peer or your customer, internal, external, what have you. The key pieces that impact our presence is when we don't listen at that level. That really impacts our presence. Yeah. How is my appearance is probably a sort of no-brainer in one sense. Well, the fact is, one thing we can't change is how we look, because we're born with certain looks. So we can't change that. What we can change is, or influence is, how we dress, how we talk. All of that we can. So that's the whole appearance part. Yeah. So moving on. Okay, what you see here, ladies and gentlemen, is the model of executive presence. I do assume that you are clearer now with the set of questions that we've asked. I assume because of those questions, you will be able to now relate to what we are going to be sharing next. So the model really has 4 dimensions. There are 4 dimensions to this model. Very clearly, as you would see on your screens, there's gravitas, there's engagement, there's entrance, and then there's appearance. These are the 4 dimensions of executive presence. These are the 4 dimensions that together make you a very powerful human being in your presence. The 4 dimensions together. Now, what really is gravitas? So coming to gravitas, we are focused, through the day, we are conveying messages, receiving messages to our employees, to our team members. Gravitas really is, how are they receiving your messages? Do you get that respect that you deserve and expect when you are giving these messages. That's called the seriousness and importance of how you give your message. So gravitas is all about that others, do you feel that others are really respecting what you're saying? They're really listening to what you're saying. So it's really a manner of causing that feeling, as the definition says. So you cause that feeling in others, yeah? So that's gravitas. Engagement is to occupy and attract someone's interest and attention. What does that mean? When you're engaging, so here I am engaging with you. I have a visual, you can see me. I have a set of slides. I am asking some questions. This is one way, though this is one way. So in this engagement would mean for me, what else can I do here to grab your attention? Should I use my voice here? Should I use my knowledge? Should I say interesting things you all can relate to? That's engagement, to get someone's attention. That's called engagement. There are many ways to do that. We will be sharing all of that as we go, yeah? So then we have entrance and appearance. It says the coming of an actor or a performer on stage. How do you enter your office? When you enter your building, how do you enter it? What do people see? So if people were watching you, what are they really seeing? Are they seeing somebody who is very successful, who looks very successful, very confident? Or are they seeing somebody who's so stressed, distressed, not de-stressed, distressed, yeah? What are they really seeing? That is a big one. That's the entry. When you enter your home after work, you might go at 8 in the night, 9 in the night. When your daughter, son, or wife receives you, or your mother and father, what do they really see? That is impactful. That adds to presence. Yeah? And appearance, of course, again, we've discussed it. It's a very simple one. It's about looks. It's about, the way you appear to others. Now, again, it's the way you appear to others more than what you do for yourself. So just to be cognizant of that. Yeah? Okay. Now, what we have here is, if you look at this slide, stay on this, give me a second. So executive presence really is the ability of the leader to engage, align, inspire, and move people to act. That's a definition for executive presence that we found very, very useful. Yeah. Now, again, when we talk of the gravitas piece, again, I'm just going to reinforce that because we're going to talk of gravitas next. Does your communication garner you the respect and attention that you expect and deserve? That's a question I'd encourage you all to ask in your leadership journey. Does your communication garner you the respect and attention that you expect and deserve? The key word here is deserve. Right? That's the key word here. More than expect, it's you deserve it. But are you getting it? Yeah? So, this is, we've found this again pretty interesting. The lost art of gravitas, the art of manliness, it says, but I don't know why it says that. Probably it's the art of both manliness and womanliness and the feminine and the masculine in you, because all of us have that divine feminine, all men do. Women do have that, the bit of masculine, the warrior in them as well. So the idea is to use that. The idea is to use all of that, yeah? Okay. So going back to gravitas. Can you also, okay. Okay. This is about gravitas. What we have here is what do we want to hear? So what do we really want to hear? When she speaks, people sit up and take notice. When she can really hold a room. His ideas are always welcomed by clients, even when there's debate or disagreement. So the idea is, how do you all relate to this? Do you know of people, when they speak, people really take notice? Do you know of such people? The idea is to sometimes model others. Or do you have a benchmark? Do you have your own visual of when people take notice of you? Do you have that visual? Then she can really hold a room. What does that mean? She or he can really hold a room. That really means you're in a meeting, maybe it's a client setting or you're a team meeting. Holding the room really means here is engagement, a lot of engagement. How are you crossing that attention, the attention that you are seeking, the seriousness of it? That's what it means to hold a room, to hold that space. There's the how part. This is what it is, but the how part is what we're going to discuss as we go. Now, his ideas are always welcomed by clients, even when there's debate or disagreement. I mean, this is a scenario where we probably encounter or get into probably day in and day out when we want to sell our ideas, or we want to influence others with our ideas for the greater good, of course, maybe of the organization, team, and your client. And we do get these pushbacks. So the part here is, even when that's happening, even when the pushbacks are happening, do you still hold your own? Do you still hold that room? That's gravitas. Yeah. So moving on.
I think I do want to talk about the famous quote from Morgan Freeman. So Morgan Freeman is typically known for having gravitas, and I don't know how many of you have seen his movies, but he is somebody who comes across somebody who knows what he's talking. His voice does the magic for him as well, and overall presence. We'll show a couple of videos, and we'll then see what insights we can draw from him. And that famous quote is, "I gravitate towards gravitas there," which is essentially what our aim should be.
Thanks, Pooja, for coming in. And just to share over here, how we want to also now from here on run this webinar is, Pooja will be asking me questions as I go. So we want this to be a bit of a conversation kind of style, wherein I think you as participants can probably learn more of what is being said, because we have certain constraints with webinars. These are by default. These are just the way it is. So we will try and make this more conversational moving forward from here. Okay, next up is, this is the definition of gravitas. This is really the dictionary definition: dignity, seriousness of manner. So this is what we have reinforced so far. What's the magic equation? So we've come up with something called the magic equation of gravitas, which really means calmness, intent, inner fire, concreteness. Very self-descriptive. If you look at your on the slides, you would see the state of calmness is the state or quality of being free from strong emotions. We all experience emotions. We experience mixed emotions through the day. And I am sure all of you who are attending this webinar would agree with the emotions that we're talking about. You would agree with the strong emotions that I'm talking about here. Now, the fact is, calmness is, what are we when those emotions show up? How is it? How do we, again, it's again about showing up. So it's the calmness in turbulence, the calmness in turbulence, the calmness when the chips are down, when things are not working. And there is a flip side to this. Calmness when there is a lot of euphoria. Maybe you won an account. Calmness, because that lends to gravitas. So frivolous can affect your gravitas negatively sometimes. So just to be wary of that. Intent is the determination to really do or mean something. While we do say many things, we pass many messages. We pass many messages to to the members, to our environment, people in an environment. Now, the intent is the determination that you really mean it. So that means how are you using your voice? What's the words that you're using? So that's the intent. How well do you mean it? Sometimes when the intent is missing or is low, and that could be due to many reasons, we don't much land with impact on others. So that intent is very important. Inner fire. So when we talk of inner fire, we talk more about all of these as we go. Inner fire really is the passion we as human beings carry within us. Are we really charged up through the day? or do we have our moments when we are charged up? So that really is the inner fire. We'll talk much more about it. We're going to share something very, very useful for you to fuel your inner fire. Yeah, there is a way to fuel the inner fire, which is true for all human beings. Concreteness is the next one. So when we talk of gravitas, we have spoken of calmness, intent, inner fire. What is concreteness? Concreteness, really, as it says, the clarity and depth in your communication. And we'll be talking more about it. Yeah? Okay, so give us a minute. Pooja is going to just line up a video. And we're going to play a video. All right. So while we are just lining up the video, I would probably just let you all take a minute to just generally reflect on what has been said so far, and I think we will have time for Q&A, of course. So you might want to. I would say you might want to note down questions as we go. I would encourage that you all note down questions, list down questions that you have as we continue to progress, because we will have that space for Q&A.
Than what we lead, a little closer to the kind of meaningful life that you lead.
From what I observe from people, as I travel more and more, meet various kinds of people in business, academics, science, and regular people all over the world, what I see is most people in the 24 hours that we have per day, they're more preoccupied than busy. That is, their own thoughts and their own emotions are such a big issue that most of their time is spent dealing with that. They may be working, but in their work, a lot of struggles are within themselves. If you're in any kind of sport or any creativity, you would know that a little struggle means your ball will go somewhere else, your ragam talam will go somewhere else, your painting will go somewhere else, nothing will happen properly. Or in other words, what could happen very simply, unfortunately happens with lots of difficulty. This is mainly because they have been given a phenomenal gadget or a phenomenal machine, which is the human mechanism. Above all,
So I trust you all saw this video, and probably many of you did recognize who this person was. This was Sadhguru, and I'll just start my video as well. Okay, so we saw Sadhguru being interviewed here, and not sure how many of you relate to Sadhguru, yet the reason we're showing this is only to demonstrate the state of being free from strong emotions. That's the calmness that we talked about. So now I'm picking up the elements of gravitas as we discussed. We discussed calmness, we discussed intent, we discussed the inner fire, and we discussed concreteness. This is more about the calmness. Now, you would have observed give me a second here. You would have observed, just 2 seconds, how to practice. So the whole question here is, how do you practice calmness? You would observe through this video Sadhguru being very calm, the pauses, he was slow in his demeanor, he was sitting straight erect. So all of this adds to presence. Now you got talk of pausing. Speak with the stone tied to your tongue is what it says. So I think I'll bring Pooja in here to talk a little more about pause.
Yeah, I guess the intent here is that at times we are just so fast into your speaking. A little tip which one can use is imagine that you have a stone tied to your tongue. Now, how would you speak? Now that's where you can practice pause. Sadhguru spoke about, so when Sadhguru is talking, there is value in what he's saying. That's the way he's carrying his words. There are techniques which you can do before you're going into a meeting, where you practice grounding as an example as well. So a simple tip is that you sit on the floor, or you sit on a seat, and then you assume that you have roots going just down below into the ground. And assume they are going 50 feet down below, then assume you're going 100 feet down below. Just close your eyes for 1 minute before you're going into an important meeting and practice that. That will overall give you overall groundedness into your whole being. The third thing which you saw there was that how Sadhguru was really sitting. See, even in this picture which is there on the screen right now, he's actually looks like he is covering the entire screen itself. While the other person is sitting there, he's really slouched. But while Sadhguru is sitting, his shoulders are back, and he's actually using as an entire physical space which is there on the screen. A small tip, which again you can use when you're actually having a conversation, is assume that you have to fit into a 40-inch TV. Now, if you have to fit into a 40-inch TV, how would you really fit? And then few other techniques of deep breathing, and one of the things which we practice a lot is breathe from your stomach. Now, that will give you overall calmness, will give you overall just your whole demeanor will just stay grounded. The fourth one, which I missed purposely, was, okay, my voice is echoing. Is it better? I think now it's good. The last one, is avoid a doom and gloom attitude, as we say it. Some of you, I don't know how many of you follow positive psychology, but there are 3 P's which you can actually practice, which can help you avoid a doom and gloom attitude. The 3 P's are these. The first P is that there is nothing which is permanent, that is not going to last forever. Now imagine if you have that thought process, how grounded and calm you can feel that, whatever state I'm in, it so shall pass. The second P is that nothing is personal, which means that it's not always about me. So when we go into situations and when you guys go into so many conversations and there are conflicts, we make it all about us. And that's when we lose our calm, and that's when we lose our gravitas as well. The third is, nothing is as perseverant that it can actually, affect all dimensions of my life. That is, if let's say, for example, something which happened at your home, your child didn't get the marks which he was supposed to get, and now you're in office having a conversation. Now, are you bringing that to work as well? And you believe that's, my child is doing, so my office work is doing as well. So having that thought process can help you stay calm, stay grounded. These are the few things which one can practice to stay calm. And calmness is one of the biggest aspects of having strong gravitas. Over to you.
Sure. Thank you very much. What we will do here is, I think we will pause. We will pause a little here and maybe reflect and take some questions. Or like in the beginning, Pooja had said, there is a hand, there is an icon which you see, a hand, a palm. If you have any questions, you could raise your palm. We could allow that person to talk. we could probably take a pause for about 2 minutes here. So yeah, if you have, so those who have a question to ask, a clarification maybe, please just raise your hand. So I don't see, okay, there is somebody,
Yeah,
okay, there is. Anil Kumar, I'm going to allow you to talk. Thank you very much, Anil. I think you can talk now, Anil. So go ahead, Anil. Anil,
Yeah.
are you on? Can you hear us?
Deep, I can hear you. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Anil?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear.
Can you
Okay,
hear me?
so go on.
Can you hear me? Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good morning. Thanks a lot. I think it's really a great start for the session, and I want to thank both of you. I was just noting down a few things during the session. Where you say Gravitas is primarily, it has got 4 components for us. One is calmness, then intent, inner fire, and concreteness. And I totally go with you that these are basic attributes which really helps us in terms of pushing things in a perfect way. And my basic question is, like, when I talk about calmness, intent, inner fire, or concreteness, what actually drives all these attributes in me? Right? I mean, everybody would love to have best of all these attributes, but what actually is driving me as individual to have certain extent of all these attributes?
Okay, great question, but I think that question that you're asking, I want to first understand the question, Anil. Very quickly for the, do you have anything else, Anil? Or shall I?
I think this is the question. Thanks a lot.
So let me first understand the question. The question you're asking is, what drives a person to be all of that? Is that the question?
Yeah, I mean, if I talk about 4 attributes for gravitas, the extent of all those attributes is dependent on person to person, right?
Yes.
What is behind all these attributes, which determines extent of those attributes in individuals primarily?
So if I understood your question correctly, there are 2 components here. One is, they're different for different people, yes. But what drives a person to hone these depends on who the person wants to be. A question the person asks is, who do I really want to be? That visual has to be clear. Now, the how part, how do you hone all this is what we're coming to next.
Right.
How do you fuel or fan the inner fire? What is inner fire? We're coming to all of that. What is that intent? So we are only touching on calmness right now. If you notice, we are going step by step. We pick the element of calmness first. And Pooja took you through many ways that we could add calmness to our presence, right? Calmness to it. That lends to gravitas. Does that answer your question? Because the driver, Anil, depends on you. So what drives me to do what I do? What drives me to learn more about certain subjects? That depends on the question, who do I want to be? Who do I want to become? Right? That question drives all of us. The values that we have. Does that make sense?
Right. Thank you. Anyway, I've got a related stuff, but I'll ask it as we move on it.
Sure. Absolutely. So anyone else? Okay. So great. Let's move on. Okay. All right. Moving on. So we've talked of calmness here, next up is, just give me a second here. Okay. I'm just trying to work my screen. So just a bit of a, okay, thank you very much. Determination to really do or mean something is the intent. That's the intent component, yeah. Now we are again going to play a little clip for you. Now before we do that, there are two questions here. By practicing congruence and through seriousness in voice. These are the two pieces here. How can one show intent? By practicing congruence through seriousness in voice is the second. We are going to go through both these elements now. So give us a second. We are lining up this video here. Okay.
You're looking for room.
All right. So we're going to play this little clip here.
Hello? Yeah, seems to be. Kind of bright though.
Yeah, it is for most people. Spend their lives in the dark.
Well, the elevator's broken, huh? Yeah, but I'll get around to it. You install the clapper?
No, but catch a jingle, isn't it? Clap on, clap off, clap on, clap off, the clapper. Just can't get it out of my head, man. Oh, good luck with that. Let's go now. The boss be right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, just give us a second. I think the system is okay. So we have stopped sharing. We are going to share in a minute. The system is just playing up here. Close all mine. Just give us a minute. Sorry about this little glitch. It is the system that is just playing up.
Hello? Yeah, seems to be. Kind of bright though.
Yeah, it is for most people. Spend their lives in the dark, trying to hide from me.
The elevator's broken, huh? Yeah, but I'll get around. You install the clapper?
No, but catch a jingle, isn't it? Clap on, clap on, clap on, clap on, the clapper. Just can't get it out of my head, man. Oh, good luck with that. I'm gonna go now. Hey, the boss be right out. You must be Bruce. I've been expecting you.
This is hilarious. So you're the boss and the electrician in the jet. Must be a killer Christmas party. Don't get drunk though. One of you might need a ride home.
You always were funny, Bruce. It's like your father. He didn't mind rolling up his sleeves either, son. People underestimate the benefit of good old manual labor. It's freedom in it. Some of the happiest people in the world go home smelling to high heaven at the end of the day.
How do you know my father and how do you get my pager number?
Oh, I know quite a lot about you, Bruce. Just about everything there is to know. Everything you've ever said, or done, or thought about doing. Right there in that file cabinet.
Wow, a whole drawer just for me.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to now talk a little bit about what we just saw here. Okay, all right. So trust you enjoyed this little video. Those of you, you know, who are fans of Morgan Freeman, I guess would have enjoyed it more than some of you, but nevertheless, the point here really is to show how congruence and the seriousness can really, really impact or have an effect on the other party. So what we really saw here is two dimensions of Morgan Freeman enacting or replying to the query or to what was being said. So in the first piece, Morgan Freeman had a overall which a normal worker would wear. So that tells you how important appearance is. What I'm saying here is the way Jim Carrey responded to Morgan Freeman in his avatar as a frivolous, funny manner, sort of a very informal kind of demeanor. So Jim Carrey responded to Morgan Freeman in a certain manner because of that. So even the seriousness Jim Carrey was lacking. He did not take anything that Morgan Freeman was stating very seriously. Now suddenly what we noticed was Morgan Freeman shed off his old avatar of a worker, and there he was standing in front of Jim Carrey in a suit, white suit. Now see, that's white suit, white tie, white shirt. What does that tell you? That exudes power, seriousness. And then the demeanor, he comes, he walks. He's not playful anymore. He walks straight. He takes long strides, and then he starts sharing in a serious tonality. Now that, if you recall what we saw, Jim Carrey's expression started to change just by, so same human being, same questions were being answered, yet in a very different manner. So that changed the whole response of Jim Carrey, the way he responded. He became serious. He was showing more respect and all of that. So this is what intent is. When we have an intent, so intent really is, if your intention is to influence or inspire people, then I think joking may not be the right stimuli. So intent really is, what we're saying here is, once your intent is very clear, then your stimuli is as per the intent. That shows or projects determination, seriousness, and all of that. And that comes across in your voice. So if my intent here is to grab your attention, so there has to be that seriousness, which is what's happening. So if my intent here was really to have a very light-hearted conversation, I would be in my body language, in my tonality, and in my physiology. Here you go, it's happening right now. I would be more sort of loosened up and not too uptight and all of that, right? So it's all about how can one show intent? That's all. So, but before that, the question is, what is your intent? Yeah. So is your intention to get attention? Is your intent for people to accept your ideas? Your stimuli will be according to that. That's the whole key piece here, right? So moving on. Okay, congruence. We are on congruence now. What really is congruence? Many people ask that question. There were times in my learning journey, even I was very confused between this whole piece about congruence. People talk a lot about it. Very simply put, congruence really is your thoughts, your words, and your actions all sort of aligned. All sort of, when we say aligned, so what you are saying, your words, must match what you are thinking. And that ideally would be complemented by the actions you're taking. Yeah. So for example, my thinking is to enable my team to be more detail oriented. That's my thinking. So I want my team to be more detail oriented. My words then would be as per what I want in my thoughts. Yet, that's not good enough. Are you detail oriented? with your actions. So do your actions match what you expect of others or what you are stating? That's one part of it. The next part is when you're inspiring people with your vision, or you're inspiring, so here you have a new project, you want to get your team members engaged. The way you share the value of the project, the way you share how this project can change many things for your team members or many things for the organization, your organization. When you are narrating all of that, are your words, is your thoughts, and all that, is it being expressed even in your body language? Is your body language, your physiology actually demonstrating what you're sharing or what you're speaking? That's what we call congruence. So we have a, so if you look at, this is Martin Luther King here, who, there's this famous speech, I think, about, I have a, what is that speech? I have a dream, I think. I have a dream, yeah. So I have a dream. Now, if those of you who know this speech, or for those of you, who get a chance to Google this, what you will notice is, when he's inspiring and influencing crowd, how he's pulling people towards him is, what he's saying, if you even notice in the picture, the expression on his face, the body language, all of that is matching what he's saying, what he wants people to do, right? That's what we call congruence, the words and the delivery of it, yeah? So
if you do a little script, right, or a little activity to really demonstrate what is congruence. So Deep, if you want to talk about, let's say, the last holiday you went on, and if you can depict being congruent, what is that?
All right, great. So here is Pooja, who's put me on a spot right here. So never mind. So what was the question, Pooja? My holiday?
So tell me about the last holiday you went on, and show me how being congruent is and how it is not. Sure.
Oh, I will happily do that. So whenever, for the past few years, whenever we talk of a holiday, the only holiday that really has stuck with me, which is a retreat. I go for this yearly retreat to the caves of Padmasambhav in the Himalayas, Pooja. I think you've been with me once or twice as well. Now, the reason that sticks out more for me, the reason I think of that first up is because the whole environment, the serenity of the place, the calmness, all of that, a sort of, it manifests in me each time I go there. And then the caves, because I meditate, so I meditate for 3-4 hours in these caves. These caves, because I also am a follower of Buddhism, of Tibetan Buddhism, what these caves do for me is the moment you sit there for 3 or 4 hours, totally sort of away from the world, your mobiles don't work there. And if you do that for 3 days, I mean, I've started to go every quarter, by the way. What that does for you is it literally empties your heart, it empties your mind. And due to that, when we return, whenever I return, and I've heard this, I've heard my colleagues say this, I've heard friends say this, hey, whenever you return from Rivalsa, you're very, very different. You're very calm, you're very poised, you're clearer. I get to hear all of it. So that's my favorite holiday. That's always been my favorite holiday.
All right. So I can see. So yeah. I did feel that. And I hope we can probably open it to the participants a little bit as to how they felt. But before we open that, now, if you can practice what is not being congruent is, and describe the same holiday.
Okay, here we go. That would be very difficult for me to do because that's not my natural style, ladies and gentlemen. So I think... okay, this is going to be difficult. So this is a holiday I go to in Rivalsa mostly. These are caves of Padmasambhav. The reason I find that really sticks out is because of the serenity, because of the calmness over there that you experience, which is really away from this busy, buzzy world.
I think it's very tough for you to be not being congruent. Right. So all right, so let's open it to participants.
Let's do this. Let's do a bit of a Q&A. Okay, there is a question that's, hi, can you please answer here how to mute my laptop? Okay, all right.
All right, so guys, we're gonna, so raise your hands, and if there are questions, we can answer right now.
So you can mute. So how does one mute you just have to.
Everybody's muted.
You're muted. So you are muted from our end.
So does anybody have a question?
So around congruence, do you want to get into a bit of a dialogue here? Anyone with some comments? We are happy to even listen to some comments or views. What are your views on congruence? We're happy to hear your views.
So folks, raise your hand, and we'll be able to unmute you then.
Raise your hand, anybody who wants to talk more about it or share your views. Or maybe here's a question. What is the difference you saw in the two different styles that I used? So we are seeking feedback now. What worked for you more? What was more impactful? So, okay, so we have a question here. Maybe if you could raise your hand, you could even. So we have a question by.
What's the question?
So is being calm and being passionate mutually conflicting? So there is a question with one of the attendees: is being calm and being passionate mutually conflicting? Okay. Now, this is a fantastic question. Yes. Now, before we get to conflicting or not conflicting, my point here is, what is being calm? Calmness is inner calmness we're talking about. So while a person could be exuding a lot of passion and very passionate from the inside, and could be in that state of euphoria, maybe talking with a louder pitch or very happy tonality, that says nothing about the person's calmness, because we talk about inner calmness. So inner calmness versus inner turmoil. Yeah. So passion is not a result of calmness, nor it is conflicting of calmness. No, they're not in conflict. So that's my response. They're two totally different things. So a person who's not calm, who doesn't have inner calmness, that passion is not passion then. That passion is more sporadic excitement. Yeah, a person who's calm from the inside will probably be passionate 24/7, right? Now, how does that happen? We're coming to that because the other element, when we talk of the inner fire, maybe when we come to that inner fire that we talked about, that's the third element of gravitas. Maybe this question of yours would be better understood, the response through the inner fire element when we come to that. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. No other queries, no other comments. Okay, let's move on. So voice as a toolbox. This is also a part of, as of now, part of the intent. We're still on the intent. This is the second part. So the first part was congruence. The second part was voice. Voice essentially is two elements, pitch and tonality. Yes, there is a third element, which is timbre. Today, we will stay away from timbre. So we will not get into timbre. It's more of the kind of bass, all of that in your voice. So let's go to pitch. What really is pitch here? If we look at pitch, we got tonality, and then we got, sorry about that. Okay, I'm sorry. So let's talk of pitch first. Let's talk of pitch. Pitch really is volume. Pitch is low, medium, high. That's what you call pitch in voice. Then there is tonality. Tonality is the happiness, I'm just going to bring it up. Give me a second. Okay, tonality is happy, angry, sad, loving. All of that is tonality. Yeah. So very clearly, pitch is high, low, and medium. Okay, you've got high and low here. There is something called medium. Very difficult. These sometimes could be very subjective pieces. What is really high? What is low? in what context do you use what? Yeah. So yeah. So let's do a bit of a demonstration here of pitch and tonality to make it clearer. So what I think Pooja might have some questions here.
So tell me.
Yeah.
Tell me, what did you have for breakfast today?
Okay, so what did I have for breakfast today? Wow, that's a good one. Did I even have breakfast? Let me first think of that. So not a good question, Pooja. Today I missed my breakfast. Give me another question. Okay.
What did you have for dinner?
Today?
Yes.
You're not into dinner today.
Yes.
Okay. So yes, today. Oh yeah.
So tell me in a loving tone.
Loving tone. All right. Okay. So let me recall. Okay, we had. Oh yes, my favorite once in a week meal, which was hamburgers. Now, not hamburgers, but burgers, I would say. So I had burgers. What I liked about those burgers was the peas and the garlic in the potatoes that my housekeeper had included. And what I also liked about the burgers was the a lettuce pot, and sun-dried tomatoes garnished with sun-dried tomatoes. So that's what I had for dinner. Was that happy, loving enough?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So if I were to say this, just very shyly, so how would that be? What I have for dinner? I don't really remember. Yeah, let me remember. Okay, I think I had burgers, but those burgers, those burgers were nice. And there was some lettuce in it. So I don't know, how many people like burgers, but
yeah.
So
ask questions. Let's ask a question now.
Yeah.
So how did the shyly tone and the lovingly tone, which Deep just used, and we can relate this to our work environment again. Quite a few of you travel as well a lot of times, meet people globally, and all of these guys respond to tones very differently. When you're meeting a new guy, do you meet them shyly, or do you meet them happily, or for that matter lovingly as well? That's something which you can reflect on. Definitely the tone which Deep used, which was shyly at the end, had an effect on me. I was like, this guy's not sure what he had for breakfast or dinner, sorry. So what impact or what effect did it have on you? And we'll just open it to just to hear your reflections.
Yeah, if you have some.
If you have some, so raise your hand.
But while we get there, there's another point I want to reinforce. When we talk of pitch, tonality, and component of voice, please keep this in mind, ladies and gentlemen. We are talking from the point of view of the intent and congruence as well. I'll tell you why. So this really has a lot of impact on the congruence of a person. So for example, I'll give you an example. If I'm sharing with a team a feedback, a very good positive feedback from a client in terms of meeting timelines, speed and quality. So the client here has given a fantastic feedback to me as a manager. Guess what? Your team did marvelously well. We are so satisfied in terms of speed and quality. Yeah. So how are you then going to convey that to your team members? Are you going to be saying it in a tonality which is very sort of plain and maybe not so while you're happy, but you're sort of saying, we heard from the client today that you all have performed so well. I mean, in terms of speed and timelines that we've met, and the quality of work was absolutely impeccable. So the client is absolutely over the moon. Or would you say it in a manner which is in line with your happiness? Now that is what tonality is. So, and that lends to congruence. So please look at it from a point of view of congruence. Yeah. So you would say, we heard from the client today. You guys have performed so brilliantly with your speed, and the quality of work has been absolutely stunning. That's what the client says. Now it says that I'm happy about it. So my body language and my tonality now match up, and my thoughts, right? This is where we'd like you to, this is what I want to reinforce really here. Keep that in the congruence in mind. Pitch is pretty much high and low, which we've already sort of demonstrated. So Let's move on. The next is, this is the big one. This also gets us back to a question somebody had asked about what drives people for that calmness, for the intent, congruence, all of that, the passion. So inner fire is also to do with passion. How does that work? So this is what we have here. Yeah, this is something we built. This is something over time, over a lot of thinking, we feel, and it is also very true, that a person's inner fire, which is the person's soul, any human being, is fired by four dimensions, by four sort of, you could call them four inputs, which is social. Let's take social fulfillment first. So social fulfillment really is about, are you receiving the love, the care, and giving? Are you engaging with your friends, with your family, extended family in? So that's called social fulfillment. Are you getting your fulfillment? Are you getting the right doses? Doses that you want. Here's a question when I say want. Many times people say, their engagement or the interaction is low. But what they tell me is, what, I'm good with that. I'm really good with that. That is not true. That is just not true. Because while we feel we don't have time for social interaction, we are so engaged and focused in our work, a human being is not designed for not being social. A human being who's out there in the world, because you're a part of a system. Unless, like me, you want to go to the caves, but not for 3 days, for 3 years, or 3 decades. Then yes, I would say your social fulfillment comes more from meditations and your conversations with God, as they say. Now, in a real world, you're part of the system. Your social fulfillment is important for inner fire. Knowledge fulfillment is the second one. Knowledge fulfillment is, are you really getting time to read? Humans per se are designed by nature. They love knowledge. They like to acquire knowledge. All human beings, rich, poor, professional, not so professional, businessmen, what have you. Human beings are designed by nature to acquire, to love for knowledge. First for knowledge. Are you getting your doses? Question for you. Are you really getting your doses? Are you too busy with just executing with your work? Because then, my dear friends, you are not feeding your inner fire. The knowledge part is not feeding your inner fire. Now, let's say financial fulfillment. For that, probably most of you would say, absolutely. You're a very well-paid people, highly paid. You probably have investments in place. There you go. So you're getting that all in all. Spiritual fulfillment. Spiritual fulfillment really is about doing a good deed. For example, you stopped on a traffic light. If your car is always probably has a good amount of portion of biscuits or apples or fruits, what have you, and you pass it on to these roadside beggars, not so privileged people, or maybe you go on a drive on a very chilly winter evening, and you have a bunch of jackets, a bunch of hoodies, which you're distributing to whoever you see who hasn't got one, essentially these beggars who hardly have any clothes on them in chilly winter nights, or maybe animals. Why not animals? You have a lot of stray dogs out there who are cuddling up, who are into the sand. They're trying to beat the chill. They're trying to survive. How about a coat for them? Just get a coat. Now these are the acts that humans by nature derive a lot of peace, a lot of spiritual fulfillment. Or listening to bhajans, listening to mantras, listening to or guided meditations, or reading a book on, say, the Himalayan masters, what have you, whoever you connect with. No matter what you have, what your take, or what your opinion is about spiritual fulfillment, or what spirituality is. My dear friends, humans are designed, they're spiritual beings. You cannot take away the spirit from a human being. You can take away the human being from the spirit, but you can never take the spirit out of a human being. Spirit is infinite, yeah? So that spiritual fulfillment, if it's not happening in your life, and you may not even, the key here is, you may not even notice all this. You may not even consciously feel the need. It's not about a need. A human core soul wants all this. It has to feel all this. Yeah. So that's what it is.
So I have a
Okay.
question.
So Pooja has a question here.
So I have a question, and
Yeah.
I'm just putting myself in the participant's shoes right
Okay.
now.
Okay.
So you're talking about spirit, you're talking about soul, which you are telling me that it feeds my gravitas.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it feeds inner fire.
It feeds in a fire, which helps in my gravitas. In the corporate world, how how can I even relate myself to this? This sounds like all, for lack of any words, is too big to even think about these things when I'm really thinking about the next call I'm getting to, next client meeting, who I'm going to just thrash me out. So what do I do?
Absolutely. So that is what people normally do.
Yeah.
Okay, the point I'm making here is how important are these 4 ingredients by nature? This is by nature. You cannot beat or fight nature. By nature, a human is designed in terms of the passion, inner fire. If all these 4 elements are being fulfilled, are being manifested in you, we may not realize it because we seem that no, we are going on our day-to-day works. What I encourage people to do is on all these 4, so have a social fulfillment goal, have a knowledge fulfillment goal, have a financial fulfillment goal, which I guess most people do, have a spiritual fulfillment, i.e., I am going to do, these are the deeds I'm going to do this week. I'm going to do that one deed which fulfills my soul, my spirit. Now, the key here is, then after a few weeks, you would want to notice the difference in your level of energy, level of commitment, happiness, and overall spirit, as I'd call it. So an inner fire, for example, I want to just highlight one last point here. Say your knowledge fulfillment is happening and your financial fulfillment is happening. No problems in that area. Trust me, unless your social and spiritual is also happening, that whole inner fire, which has so much more potential to grow, that fire to really grow, that whole giant has so much more potential. What you're really doing is you're actually dousing it in one sense. Not consciously, but by default, you're dousing it. Yeah. So that's what I'd encourage. Any questions here? Any clarifications that you want, or what is your perspective on what is being shared here? So I'll take a pause. Show of hands. It'll pop up here. Okay.
Dinesh.
All right. Dinesh, welcome. Over to you, and you can talk now.
Yes, I hope I'm audible.
Dinesh, you are to me, and I think you are to all of the rest.
Audible,
you are
Dinesh,
audible.
go ahead.
Yes.
Great. So I thought there was something which was missing in this inner fire, which was to do with your physical self. So some kind of a physical fulfillment, to do with work, to do with exercise, which I believe is essential for maintaining health and also keep that inner fire burning. So what's your take on that?
I could not agree more with what you are saying. Absolutely. Now, you're so right. The physical health, a fitness goal, that of course adds to the fire. So we could have a 5th element. So then it really completes this physical dimension that you have brought completes the whole piece so we have 5 elements like wind, water, air, X, Y, Z. So you could have the 5 elements to also fan your inner fire. So I think, Dinesh, that's a fantastic piece. I would totally agree with that.
I guess another aspect, is how open we are to experiences. Does that also fuel your inner fire, specifically in terms of your social fulfillment? So I personally have always believed that meeting new people and the experiences which I have with them, also fuels my fire.
That's social fulfillment.
Yeah. And, unfortunately in India, we really culturally, conditionally, we're not really tuned in to really go out and experiment, go out and just put ourselves out there. So one of the goals which you can add for yourself is that what is that one new person or one new experience I'm going to do in this quarter? And then just see how it, what it does to you. The idea is not really doing it. The idea is in doing it and really then reflecting, what did it do to me? That reflection is key. Otherwise, we'll be again in that doing cycle again and again without even reflecting.
Thanks, thanks, Pooja. And thank you, Dinesh. Anything else? Anybody else? So point taken. And I think that just, like I said, completes the whole circle, the physical aspect.
All right, let's move on.
Okay, so nobody else? Can we just sort of do the controls? We might want to move on. Okay. Concreteness. We are into I think this is the last element of Gravitas, as we have had, from the equation that we first showed to you. What really is concreteness? Clarity and depth in your communication. What does that really mean? Let's have a look here. Okay. So, there is two structures I always think of. There is a surface structure, which is what we really share, what we talk about, the information we give, that tells us, what we know. But then there is a deep structure, what we really know. So before we get there, the point here is concreteness really comes by reflecting on the accuracy and correctness of knowledge. What does that mean? While we may feel that, yes, we have, let's take design thinking, for example. If I were to use design thinking as an example, what that really does is, it has tools. So design thinking, when I talk of design thinking, people normally, invariably have heard about it. It's such a buzzword these days. Yet, when we get to some of the intricacies, some of greater details of various tooling in ideation, whether you have the SIT model or the Scamper, people also are very familiar with these names. They'll take a lot of names. Yet, that's not concreteness. That's surface knowledge. Concreteness is, have you even challenged the accuracy and correctness of design thinking? Have you even challenged the tools? And how do you do that? Obviously, that takes us to the next step. Have you experimented with the tools in design thinking? Or have you attended a lecture and you have become a master suddenly? That's not concreteness. So actively experimenting and concrete experience. So have you put elements of what you know, if design thinking were the example, or if coaching was an example, maybe you want to become a coach, you know a bit about coaching or leadership. But the fact here remains, that's surface knowledge. So concreteness here, we mean the clarity and depth. So in your subject, so we are subject matter experts here in this panel, I know that. So have you challenged some of that, or have you received certain learning as a part of knowledge and gone into execution mode? So concreteness is mastery, really. Mastery is a journey. So while we have our conscious incompetence, then we have conscious competence, then we have unconscious competence, and then we have mastery. So mastery is a journey. It's the same for everybody. Concreteness comes from there. Yeah, so that's what we mean. An active experimentation and concrete experience. So if you go back to the right side of your screens, yeah, so remove doubts, confusion, fragmented knowledge, all of that leads to the deeper structure being a little low on foundation. So this is where we are with concreteness.
Yeah. All right.
So does that
I think we can
bring us to almost the end of the session?
Yeah.
I think we are in time. We are on time. This is what we wanted to cover for this morning, and we will take up the next parts of executive presence in the following webinar. Now, I'm going to open this panel for Q&A. So over to you all. Like I said, so I had encouraged you all to list down questions as we were going. So I assume, many of you have listed down some of the questions, and we're happy to take those questions now.
Dinesh has a question.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dinesh. You
Dinesh?
can talk.
No, sorry, I was just lowering my hand.
All right.
Okay, right. Anil? Okay, so Anil, you can talk. Yes, Anil?
No, we've lost him. Okay. Wait, thanks. Anil, you can talk now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Anil, go.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Anil. Go on.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for reinforcing my thought, especially for what is driving me to have the specific attributes. When I was hearing inner fire, you typically talked about 4 or 5 dimensions, and where I heard Dinesh adding another dimension for physical part, I mean, being physical well-being. Okay. My question is primarily, or other thought which I want to just take from you is, when I talk about all these attributes, how to draw a line for that attributes. And for example, if I say financial attribute for me in life, how to really make a call that this much is sufficient for me if I talk about 4 attributes. So what can be a maybe yardstick, or what can be a tool for me to gauge it that this much is required? For example, again, if I talk about physical well-being can be like I become a triathlon, I become a marathon, I just become a regular guy who goes yoga. So where to draw a line specifically for all these attributes in life?
Okay, so I think that's very subjective and contextual to different people. What I'm saying, Anil, is it's very unique to each individual where you draw the line. Right. What I would say, my response to that question would be, how do you first even know that that inner fire that you have is really, really burning and it's red hot? First is to get a sense of that. So what are some of the signs? What are some of the signs that a human can sort of identify or messages that, yes, our inner fire is huge? So mostly, if we are in a very upbeat mood, we are happy most of the times. Mostly, when I say that, most of your waking hours, you are really happy. The dreams that you dream of are really good dreams in the night. You're very energetic. You're very emotionally, your emotional quotient is very high. You're very socially aware. You're very aware of all of you. Now, if you feel all of this is happening, then I think the fulfillment that you're deriving from all the 4 areas is pretty okay. Now, yes, you can always experiment. And now when you talk about financial, I think financial is the only tangible and the physical part. The rest of it is mostly intangible. Knowledge, you might say tangible, intangible, but social need, spiritual need, all of that, these are intangible. So we can't put a sort of a, benchmark, what's good enough. I think it's the being. So Anil, my response then to bottom line this would be, how do you feel, Anil, minute to minute, moment to moment, event to event? And that should tell you, what is it you want more of? Is it the spiritual fulfillment, which is not happening these days? Or is it the social fulfillment? Maybe you've stayed away from your family for some people for too long, and that is draining them, while they may not even realize. But the moment they go back home, they're with their families, you see how uplifting it is. That gives you enough to say, oh, you know what? I think I need more of social fulfillment. So that would be my response.
Yeah.
So we have some other questions here. What's the question? Where does empathy come in? Now, I've understood that life is an important quality for, this is an important quality for a leader. So empathy, this is a very different question. I don't think it is related to inner fire. So empathy really comes in most of the time. So what is empathy? We need to understand that. So many people sort of, get a little confused between sympathy and empathy. Empathy essentially is putting yourself in another person's shoes and being mindful of the other person's circumstances. An example would very clearly be, you have this, maybe you have a subordinate who is not a very good communicator, right? Now, would you really go up to say that, hey, you know what, your communication skills are really poor, you've got to come up to speed, or else, blah, blah, blah? Or would you actually consider the person's context, the background, the privilege? Some people are privileged, some people are not so privileged, or the conditioning of this person, and then take a call. That's empathy. Yeah, that's empathy.
Yeah. There's another question.
Okay, what are the questions here?
No, it's done.
Okay, that's okay.
That's it.
Anybody else? So,
We're on time.
do we have time for one or two questions?
We actually don't.
But maybe one or two questions. Happy to answer. Okay. Okay. Anisha,
No, she doesn't have.
did you unmute yourself?
Yes, Deep.
Yeah. I think we're done.
Deep, this is Sheena here.
Can I? Yeah.
Yeah. So we're pretty much towards the end, and we probably have time for one more question. After which, I think we need to close this.
Sure. So,
Yeah.
Sheena, happy to take. That's what I said. Happy to take more questions. The reason I twirled my mustache was not to deter people from asking questions. That's just a habit.
All right.
Okay. Sheena, do you have a question? Let me ask you a question.
You're putting me in the spot.
No. I'm just asking, do you have a question? I'm not going to ask any questions.
No, I don't have any questions. I think I'm done asking you a lot of questions in the past over the last 2-3 months. So I think we'll let that be.
All right.
Okay, so we are good. Now, I want to thank each one of the participants for your patience and for being participative, those of you who were. And I know those who were not sort of coming up with a question or raising their hands, I know they were participating. I do know that. I could sense it. I could feel it. You were observing. You were attentive. Moving forward, we will be sharing the deck, as I said initially, this presentation, and happy to answer questions offline. We're happy to take these questions. You do have our emails, Sheena, Anisha, they know about it. We are always engaged. We don't like to just stop things the way they are. We'd like to take it forward. So any questions, we may also be sending curated content on this, and why not? I'll give you some more stuff on inner work, on congruence, all of that. So that becomes some sort of, good sort of information for you all to reflect on. How does that work?
So are you sharing a recording as well?
Yes, we will be. We will be sharing the recording of this webinar with each one. We'll be sharing a link.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, all of you, for being here today. Thank you, Sheena. Thank you, Nisha. I don't know if Javed's there as well. So thank you all.
Javed is here. Pooja.
Thank you, Javed.
Thanks, Deep.
All right, thank you.
Guys.
Thank you. You have a good day, all of you. Bye.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch with next steps on this, and we'll probably be sending out a feedback link to all the participants. And then they probably get even a copy of all the slides and a link to the webinar recording.
Sure.
I look forward to seeing all the participants for the next set of webinars as well. We look forward to any feedback that you have. Please tell us what you'd like to see more of. Is there something that you'd like to see less of? We will be committed to incorporating all of that into the next set of webinars. Yeah. So it's a long day ahead for people in India, and for people who are joining us from other locations. I think it's the end of the day. So have a great day ahead. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much once again.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.